Hello and welcome to the Overton Audios podcast. My name's Connor Chadwick.
And I'm Daniel Pan. Yes, it's me this time, and Connor hasn't started the podcast with a whole bunch of other people without me noticing, and I join in the very last minute. How you doing, Connor?
Hello. And on today's podcast, we're going to be discussing the Overlook film that's coming out from one of my visual projects, Red Banner Productions. We're going to be discussing that, and it's got quite a bit of history to it as well.
It does, doesn't it? And then later on, there'll also be a chat with James Sutton about Torchwood Rebirth Volume 1. Sounds very exciting.
It's all coming together.
It is, yes. Finally, Torchwood Rebirth is coming out. Yes!
Yeah, I know. It's been...
It's only taken 7 years.
Well, yeah, it started with you, didn't it?
Yeah, well, there's a bit of history of Torchwood Rebirth, but we'll get to that in a bit.
Indeed. Firstly, Daniel, how are you?
I'm good. I'm a bit tired because July is fast approaching, and with that comes mine and Anya's wedding. So
we're going to have to discuss. We're going to have to discuss what we're doing for the July and August podcasts because you're probably not going to be around.
Yeah, it might have to be a guest coming in to fill in my spot,
or like a pre-recording or something like that. We have to very much pre-record it in advance.
Probably. Yeah. We shall cross that bridge when we get to it.
Indeed. Yeah. Oh, how about we just record the podcast at the wedding reception,
and just like. And then just like, hello, welcome to Overton's podcast. And Anya's just like, Daniel, just say I do for God's sake.
It's just like halfway through, please say I do. And it's just go, hello and welcome to the Overton Audios podcast. It was echoing through the church.
That'll be a very confused reception.
No, I'll line up a guest host or something like that, just in case. But we will need to talk about at some point for the podcasts where you'll happen to be away on them is when Dark Universe 1 comes out.
Oh my god.
So we might have to pre-record an actual segment where we don't actually do the podcast together. I record the segment with you and we talk about it.
I'll be a guest.
I know. You'll be a guest for once.
Yeah,
what a twist. There'll be a guest host and you'll be a guest. What a weird scenario.
Yeah, it'd be very weird. How have you been anyway, Connor?
I've been good, keeping busy. Well, as I was mentioning to you before the podcast, when we started recording it, I've done a lot of editing recently and a lot of writing. Because that's the thing, last time we had one of these chats just one-to-one with us and I suppose with listeners was back for the March one, I think. For the March podcast, so that was February was the last time we actually got to chat, just me and you.
Yeah, it's weird.
That was because that was because we had John. He appeared as a guest host for April, and then, but that was because we'd recorded the segment for Mastermind Volume 1 at the same time.
Yeah,
and then the May podcast had everyone in it, like you were saying earlier, and here we are, whilst still in May, recording for the June podcast.
Yep.
Yeah, it's all complex, but that's the thing, like, I mean, we could get away with probably you being in the July podcast because that's coming out at the beginning of July. It's going to be the one podcast you won't be able to be in will be the one where it's actually all about you. Like literally, its title is named like Dark Universe.
A man can only allow himself to be egotistical.
You have to make a choice now: get married or talk about Dark Universe.
Can I choose? Can I choose? Anya, please don't watch this.
But yeah, I mean, we've both been incredibly busy. You went over recently to Birmingham, didn't you, to film within the more TARDIS scenes?
Yes, we finished all the TARDIS scenes for episode 1 of Fractured Timeline. We also filmed little bits of episode 2, so we're a bit ahead now of episode 2. And that's about it. Really. There's not much else to report.
But sounds good though. Like
Oh yeah, I mean,
obviously,
we finally have episode 1 is now officially wrapped up, and all this week I've been trying to get VFX done so I can try my best to get a summer release. And all this week I've been working on episode 1. I've got an outstanding amount of work done. One shot.
Oh God.
One shot, not one scene. A shot. A single shot.
Is that the shot that you filmed and sent to me earlier in the week?
Yes, I did. It is that shot.
Oh God. As in basically you sent me a draft of it. Of what kind of roughly put together, and then you were like, still need to do some bits, and that's what you've been doing since.
Yeah.
Oh. I did see, obviously, you posted some stuff on Instagram, though, of a shot of one of the Daleks against like a thundery skyline.
Yeah. I have been working on other scenes as I've been waiting to film the TARDIS scene. So I'm a little ahead of some VFX, but I'm also behind in the majority of others.
So,
yeah.
But then you're having a very busy.
Yeah, I see why you do not. I see why you do audios now.
Yeah, that's the thing. I suppose the visual effects element is the cover arts in the end. Yeah. But luckily, that's after the main thing has been edited, and then you just go make the cover later. But yeah.
I still make the poster for. I think is that I'm yet to make the main poster for Dimension of the Dogs. I'm still yet to make the title sequence for Series 2.
Oh God. Oh.
So it's gonna be a busy old summer for Daniel.
Well, things will be calmer after July, I think. It's because you've been busy sorting out this wedding for years. It'll all culminate in this one amazing day, and then you get to go off on your honeymoon, and then you and I can just sort of relax, knowing that you are where you want to be.
Exactly. Yeah. When we're filming in Birmingham in the TARDIS, we filmed quite a few scenes, including which Anya's still filming currently for little bits because she's going to get some pickup shots for Dimension.
Yeah.
But Anya has officially filmed all her scenes in the TARDIS.
Oh wow.
Forever. And it's hit us now that we're reaching that point at the end now. That scenes that are crucial, like the TARDIS scenes, that they're all done basically now. I still need to film some, but it's weird to think that.
I don't know exactly how much we've said, but we did post after filming some of Marinus Paradox in February with the new cast.
Yeah, the new cast. And it's been, I don't know, man. It's been a bit emotional the last couple of, because I'm starting to feel it's coming to an end. I'm starting to feel that. I'm starting to feel to not be so cliche here. I don't want to go.
Oh God, that's the thing. You are entering the whole next chapter of your life now, aren't you? You and Anya are getting married, and then afterwards, your original intention was to have the series finished prior to that, but obviously COVID has meant that you can't. But ultimately, it's now looking at it, like you say, you filmed the last scenes now with Anya, that you kind of succeeded.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah. But ultimately, the series, whilst it might not be finished, you can't blame what happened in the world for you not being able to complete it. You're just being quite responsible and safe, to be honest. But yeah. I mean, it is weird. It's always weird when you film the last of something, especially when it's been like that for so long. Didn't I say to you that when you really think about it, when you filmed that TARDIS scene with you and Anya in the Spark, you'd only been together for around a year and a half.
Yeah.
And now you are, and it's like that's the next stage of your lives, and thus things are starting to come to an end, like the book, or well, no, the book of your lives goes on, but the chapter is ending.
Yeah, poetically that way. Yeah, it's because we filmed our first TARDIS scene in August 2017, nearly 5 years ago. Nearly 5 years since we started filming for Extra Timeline now. But yeah, we went in with less than a page of improvised script before we script the entirety of the Spark. And yeah, here we are. We've now finished TARDIS scenes with Maggie, and now it's starting to wrap up.
And
it's kind of a bit more surreal now. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's real. Yeah. It's ending. But speaking of things that are surreal, sir, the Overlook film was quite surreal if you think about it.
You're starting to steal my segues.
Well, did it work?
It did very well. I'm very proud.
I've been learning. I've not just been doing the podcast. I've been learning.
You've been watching and observing, taking notes.
Indeed. Anyway, shall we chat a little bit about Overlook, the short film that you made, and also a bit about its history and also its subsequent development?
Yeah, roll the trailer, I suppose. The purpose of this experiment is to test your interaction with different people whom are living within the house. What would you do if you were a parent?
I'd love my child despite who he or she believed they were. Why can't they? Well, that brought back memories.
It did, yeah. That was, how long ago was that now? Well, in July, it will be 6 years since that was shot.
Yeah. That was the first time we met in person.
Oh, God, yeah, it was, wasn't it? Yeah, you flew over and we picked you up, and you stayed at my home. How long for? For about 2 weeks.
I stayed over at your house for a week. I think a week and a few days, and then I went over to Birmingham.
Yeah. Then you went and filmed some of Series 4 with Luke.
Yeah, I went to go film, I think it was episode 7 of Series 4.
Oh, that's cool.
But we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about Overlook.
Yeah. No, it's just us putting, like, having the nostalgia trip on it. But no, yeah. that film was initially, I'd watched the first season of Mr. Robot. I still haven't seen any other series, by the way. I really want to, but there's too much to watch.
Yeah, I recently watched Mr. Robot Series 1 as well, and I'm trying to find the time to watch.
You can see, like, the shooting style that we had for Overlook was very heavily inspired from it. I just loved the sort of weird angles they were shooting at. Like, not everything is in, like, what you might call the traditional framing. So you'd have, like, someone speaking in the bottom left corner whilst everything's left open around it, but it makes you feel uncomfortable because it's empty space. And that's something I wanted to try and do with a short film. So I was working on these concepts, and essentially Overlook in its rawest form is basically about someone who's trans and doesn't feel comfortable in their skin, and they want to change, but the people in their lives, family and friends, have not accepted them, and they're left in a horrible situation where they don't know what else they can do, so they're turning to the possible worst situation. But then a situation plays out in their mind, and I mean, yeah, it has got a level of pretentiousness to it, hasn't it?
A little bit. I think it was like sort of like the early days of us trying to find our feeling with making short film. Well, you've been making short films for a while, and so have I, but I think we were trying to tackle more serious subject matters.
And we wanted this film to be very experimental, which of course we ended up thinking we can do different things with this and tell different versions of it, which thus has created obviously the original Overlook film that we made. I think we shot that over 2 nights, didn't we, in between filming Time Traveller?
Yeah, we did. And
you were not happy those days, by the way. I remember. You were always tired, and, like, even though we'd have like a full 8 hours, you'd still come down looking You weren't looking happy, put it that way.
I was just tired because I think we started filming as soon as I got off the flight. And when I fly, I get very tired. So that tiredness just extended throughout the entirety of that shit. I think at one point whilst filming Overlooked, I went upstairs to call Anya and I collapsed asleep. And
yeah, I remember that. What had happened was PMG was staying as well because he stayed. You must have stayed longer than a week because PMG stayed with us for a week. You must have stayed longer than a week.
I think it was a week in a few days. I think I stayed 9 or 10 days.
That might be it then, because I remember we definitely had a good few days of just us, and then PMG came and joined, and it was a majority of 3 of us for that time. But no, yeah, there was a point where you were calling Anya, and me and PMG sat downstairs whilst you were having the call, and about 3 hours passed. We were like, "Oh, okay, something's not right." And then we went upstairs slowly, and there you were, passed out.
And like you had no idea what to do because we still do filming. I think that's why it took 2 nights to film it because it was because I collapsed. Not collapsed. Make it sound dramatic. I just fell asleep, but poor you and PMG didn't want to wake me up.
Well, it was also a passed out element because you were so tired you actually fell asleep. You know what I mean? You didn't. You fell asleep not of your own volition. You actually your body just switched off.
Yeah.
Like that's essentially what I consider to be passing out. But no, there were a lot of times. Like for example, I know there were times where when we were filming, you would also say, and this isn't like not a bad thing, but you were also just like, "Can we just sit and watch a film this evening?" Which is absolutely fine, and we did that.
Yeah.
But ultimately, we got the filming done over 2 days, and it was a mixture of all of us filming in the end, wasn't it? Because all 3 of us were in it.
Yeah. Exactly.
But then we remade it, didn't we? So I think your one was first.
No, mine's. I think I know you and PMG made your version, and I made mine's July of 2017.
Oh, okay, yeah. So
I know you guys made yours towards the end of 2020, no, 2016, I believe.
We've got work to do. You've locked me away. You've hidden me from the real world. I'm not the one locking you up, Alex. You are.
Yeah, because it came out we made a new version called Finding Alex, which is more specifically about the person and them finding themselves. But that time we did something completely different because obviously like we were saying about doing different experiments with different stories. I think PMG plays everyone. Like he's dressed as like a cowboy type character. He's like the big friend who I think he played in the original, and then has a massive beard as well. But that's just PMG normally, and then he shaved, and then gelled his hair, and he looks completely different, and it really works as well. We did a really decent split screen for that. I was really proud of how that looked. Yeah. And then your one was, rather than it being, for example, a male being the character in this mind thing, because the original thing was it was a Kate Lassman playing Alex in a female form in the real world, but it was basically a trans man. So you were then the representation of what Alex wanted to be in this mindscape.
Yeah.
In your one, you reversed it, didn't you?
The purpose of this experiment is to test your interactions with different people who are living within the house.
You locked me away. You hide me from the real world. Do you think you're helping?
Do you take the leap of faith and trust in my plan? Or remain where you are, helpless and defeated? Yeah, I said it's a man who's Alex is a male in the real world, played by Little Red himself, Luke Newman.
Yeah.
And in his inside of his own consciousness, he imagines himself as a woman, played by Anya.
And then also Meg appears as what was originally PMG's character, the go-friendly kind of friend. Friendly friend.
The party type.
Yeah, exactly. And then you played Bertie, who was meant to be like the representation of depression and anxiety.
Exactly, yeah. And I think I wanted to follow a lot what you did with that film. I took a few instead of being a roof, I made it a bridge. And to put it nicely, when we filmed that scene, it was kind of hard because unfortunately that bridge has been known for suicide in our town.
Oh, okay.
And we didn't realize that until afterwards. Like, we filmed a film about this subject matter so we felt bad afterwards. But then in my mind, Alex stepped away. That's how I see the ending.
Yeah.
So I see it as a conquering of the depression, not a defeat, but a conquering.
Yeah, there's a nice twist in there where the anxiety and depression, they start to eat away at this kind of mindscape, but then the anxiety gets twisted onto other things, which gives the confidence boost.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say too much. I would like people to watch it. It's coming out on the 5th of June. It is out on YouTube somewhere else, but I just wanted to re-release it because it was originally made as part of like a joint production thing that myself and PMG were doing, but through Waterside and everything like that, when we've been filming that, we ended up just making 2 separate like production names anyway, so we've just decided to carry on with that.
Yeah.
That was also echoed in March with Our Father, which used to be called By Dad, and that came out re-released and partially re-edited because of the new title and stuff like that. That came out in March, but that's essentially it. But yeah, you can find it somewhere, but obviously I'd like people to watch it like still when it comes out, so just hang on for that. And now we're going to do some comments reading, aren't we? Back in the old comments reading chair.
Oh, blessed. So at the moment, I'm reading from Mastermind Volume 1, Episode 1, At Universe's End, written by myself and you, Connor.
Oh, yes.
And we start out, as we always do, with Jeevan John.
Oh, yes.
Hello, Jeevan. Well, what an explosive start to this volume. The first episode was incredible. The story was fantastic and the characters were beautifully written by Dan and Connor. Daniel Japan as the Irish doctor was sensational as always. Thank you, Jeevan. It was mostly archive footage, but thank you. And it was nice that we got the retelling of some of his adventures he had with Nathan Chase and Maggie May, but this time it's shown from the point of view of the 2 masters, which was a nice idea, which was executed perfectly. Damien McDevitt as the Irish master was spectacular, and the dynamic between him and John's master were brilliant to listen to. Last but not least, John N. Harper as the master was phenomenal, and his interactions with the Irish master were my favorite parts. John's portrayal of the master is genuinely astonishing. I cannot wait to hear it flourish throughout the next 2 episodes. Overall, this first episode was superb. I can't wait for more as it goes along. Infinites out of infinites with 3 hand clap emojis. I think it's turned to emojis now.
And fairness, yeah, he's done the infinity stuff because he's broken the scale. So he just thinks it's incredible, basically, which is, of course, very lovely to say, Jeevan. Thank you.
And next we got Michael Cox.
Oh, yes.
Love Michael. This excellent and engaging story explores the fundamental characteristics of the master that he/she they must mastery overall. So put 2 iterations together and sparks certainly fly. The master cannot share control over events, even with a future or past self. And this is especially true in the matters pertaining to the Doctor. Sorry, dyslexia. The Doctor often It's actually it's terrible today. Sorry, everyone. Scobble when they cross each other's timelines. This is a similar cranked up to the max, as the saying goes. Cracked. Sorry, Michael. Lovely comments, but my dyslexia burst it. I'm so sorry.
It's because you made it through the Jeevan comment so quickly. It had to flare up at one point.
Yeah, I was like, I'm doing good. I'm doing good, and then it's like, God damn it.
Yeah, but I'll give you the break for the next two. Well, the next two episodes that we're gonna read for.
Yep.
So going on to Mastermind Volume 1, Episode 2, called Old MacDonald. These next two episodes I'm reading for are a loose two-parter written by John N. Harper, no less. So we start with Jeevan, of course. This penultimate episode to this episode, it probably means volume, was astounding. The story was excellent and the concept was so intriguing. The writing by John N. Harper was truly exquisite, and the gothic dark feel in his writing really shone through in this episode. Some of the more heavy subjects dealt with in the episode, such as the Master facing racism, was some of the most hard-hitting moments in the episode, and it really highlighted one of the other strong points in John's writing of this episode. All of the characters were phenomenal, and the cast gave it an amazing performance. Kat Furness as Mrs. Weathershire was amazing, and her performance was truly incredible. I loved how her character fell into the trap of false hope of finding new love, but then it actually quite literally being the death of her. And her interactions with the Master, or Tom MacDonald, as he likes to call himself, were some very lovely moments. Harvey Smith as Patrick Stanley was marvellous, and his slimy attitude and racist behaviour towards the Master made me despise him. Anya Coyle as Sandra Macmillan was brilliant, and I loved how her character was very innocent, but still had the slight cheekiness that any other child would towards their siblings. AJ Gray as Bobby Macmillan was fantastic, and I really loved his interactions with all the characters, such as his little sister Sandra. Eamon Longman as Mike Macmillan was also wonderful, and I loved his careless attitude to a situation at the lake that eventually resulted in grim results. Daniel J. Patton as Stephen Macmillan was spectacular, and I loved his interactions with the Master and how he was very warm and welcoming towards him. Aidan O'Connor as Paul Shaw was really amazing, and I loved that I could see he was a man that fell for the Master's tricks, but he paid the consequences for that. Alia E. Torrey as Millie Macmillan was incredible. The interactions with the Master was amazing, and her falling for his deceptions was really amazing. And of course, John N. Harper as the Master was remarkable, and his performance just gets better as time goes on. John's portrayal of the character is truly a work of pure perfection, and I cannot wait to hear more of it in the next and final episode of this first ever volume. The next comment is from Michael Cox. It's a great technique to employ a slow build for the Master, as he loves intricate plans that take time to come to fruition. This episode was therefore able to be a character piece that establishes key characters and sets up the dynamics between them. John delivers a very amiable Master, reminiscent of the War Master. Lulling the villagers into a false sense of security, Old MacDonald will support them. The theme of racism was tackled with appropriate sensitivity, and the other members of the cast did a great job populating a village cut off from the rest of the world, where the life together is like a pressure cooker waiting to blow. I think Daniel J. Patton's artwork is always of the highest standard, and he did well in giving John a convincing beard. Mind you, with all the Master's references to being old throughout the episode, maybe a few grey hairs wouldn't have gone amiss.
He did make his hair grey, but I think that's the colour grading that's putting some of the brown back in.
Yeah, but in all fairness, like I always saw it as the Master just going on about how he is old, but he can be in a young body type thing.
Yeah, but thanks very much for that lovely comment about the artwork.
Yeah. Moving on to episode 3 with the bodies in the water, we have a comment from Michael Cox. A splendidly gruesome tale. The Master is a bit like a child who pulls the legs off spiders, disturbingly cruel and enjoying every moment. The high point of the story was the final confrontation between Millie and the Master, with both actors giving their all, as the saying goes. Well, thank you very much, Michael. He's so good at writing reviews, isn't he?
He is, yeah.
And then the final comment, obviously, we've got the same two people rolling over, I think, just Jeevan and John as well, saying, this final episode to the first volume was truly, shall I say, masterful. The story was excellent, and the writing by John the Masterful N. Harper was sensational. The concept of it being themed around real-life creepypastas was a terrific idea. All of the cast were amazing and gave a brilliant performance, but I would like to praise Alia E. Torre and her performance as Millie McMillan, as she gave an amazing performance, and her interactions with the Master were some of the most amazing moments I've heard. Bash Dinsmore, Anna Coyle, AJ Gray, Eamon Longman, Harvey Smith, Daniel J. Patton, and Aidan O'Connor were all marvelous, and I loved their interactions within this story and how they slowly began to turn against the Master. But I think that John N. Harper is to be especially as congratulated for his performance as the Master, and I loved his performance in each episode. This volume overall was a brilliant start, and I cannot wait for more to come with the Master's devious schemes and plans. 5 clapping emojis and 5 infinity symbols. Wow.
I can't wait to see how he breaks a scale this time.
I don't know what you could do next, but there will come a point that, just to let you know, Jeevan, there will come a point where we just say that you liked it rather than reading out all those infinities.
Yeah. Anyway, moving on to the Sherlock. My apologies. So sorry.
Oh, Daniel. I thought that was me. I got worried that was me.
Oh, that was me. So sorry. That was on you. But first of all, let's go into Sherlock Holmes Volume 2. It did wrap up today, but no comments have appeared in episode 3 as of yet, so we might leave that till next month's podcast. So we're going to go episode 1, A Case of Identity. First, we got Michael Cox. Excellent use of Mary Watson as an active character in the narrative, rather than a piece of the background detail of Watson's character. Creates a compelling and interesting dynamic between Holmes and Watson, and adds further depth to the storytelling. It does. Thank you very much, Michael. And Jeevan John. Well, this first episode of Volume 2 was a strong start. The story was excellent and beautifully brought to life by Connor Chadwick and Alan Rafferty. All the cast from Connor Chadwick, Daniel Japan, Megan Roper were fantastic, and it was amazing hearing James Endine as his character, Harry Angel. But I'd like to especially praise Adele Jane Harris, who voiced the character Mary Watson, as I absolutely loved her in this story, as her portrayal of the character was truly brilliant. I cannot wait to hear more of Mary as this volume goes along. Overall, I flippin' loved this episode and cannot wait for more from this volume. 6 infinite emojis and 6 clapping emojis.
Oh, wow.
Strong praise.
Indeed.
And now we're going to episode 2 of Volume 2, and that is The Speckled Band. We got Jeevan John. This episode was incredible. The storytelling was amazing, and the characters were incredible. Roman Wood, Daniel J. Pan were all phenomenal, but Alia E. Torre as Helen Stoner was fantastic. I really loved how she brought the character to life in this episode. As for me, I was delighted to be in the episode, if it was a few lines, but nonetheless, thank you for getting me involved in this series. Overall, this episode was amazing. I cannot wait to see what's in store for the next episode. 7 clapping emojis and 7 infinite emojis.
We're seeing a pattern here, aren't we?
Yep. And Michael Cox, keeping it simple with an admirable adaptation of a creepy classic. Keep up the good work. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you very much indeed. And those were all the comments for this month.
Yeah.
Obviously, we had double the amount of releases. Next month we'll only have Rebirth, which is only the 4 episodes to read from, so that'll be a lot simpler.
Yeah.
But so shall we go along to speaking of Rebirth? There you go, there's my segue. Speaking of Rebirth,
segues are slipping.
Yep, I suddenly realised, I made a segue without meaning to. Shall we have a little listen to my conversation with James Sutton about Torchwood Rebirth Volume 1?
Yes, we shall.
Overton Audios presents.
Call in Rebirth.
Yes, Colonel. Rebirth are ready to collect.
Torchwood has had its bad reputation before. You should know this.
We're not like the Torchwood that came before.
Are you sure?
Positive. It's unusual for someone to arrive at work before they've actually been hired.
Aren't you angry with me for faking my pass and getting in?
Why? It shows your Torchwood material. Pack a few things, we're going to Tiptree.
Who is she?
New girl.
Hello, gorgeous. How are you?
Piss off.
Alright then. There is something at the bottom of this hole, usually is, something with a huge amount of energy. Fuck was that?
Come on, let's go. Retreat!
Garrick, special agent from the FBI.
Get me on the phone with the FBI director.
This is dangerous.
That's why Torchwood was created. We have to take these risks. But if your theory is to be believed, then we are talking about parallel universes.
Torchwood Rebirth, Volume 1, coming the 4th of June 2022 at 12 p.m.
But I can't imagine it in my head. I saw it, but I...
Don't think about it, Lizzie.
And hello everyone, I'm here with James Sutton. Hello, James.
Hello. Sorry, I didn't cut you off there. Hello. How is everyone? Not that they can reply.
How have you been?
I've been good. Very busy indeed, but good. Busy is good. You know, I'll sleep when I'm dead.
Now, I did a bit of research because you mentioned this earlier, which was when we last recorded the podcast was when RTD was confirmed to return to Doctor.
Oh, yes.
And then you were saying about how, because for those listening, we are recording this on the day that the new Doctor has been announced.
Yeah, Ncuti Gatwa?
Yes, that's right, yeah.
Yeah, Ncuti Gatwa has been announced as the Doctor today, and last time we recorded a podcast, Russell had been announced as coming back, and, you know, I guess we just need to schedule one for a little bit later on for a few more announcements of official nature.
Yeah, we'll need to
doing it.
Well, that's the thing. It's possible because obviously we've got plans.
Listen, correlation.
Well, I mean that's the thing. You'll likely be in the podcast again, and that we will have to time that with when, because obviously the 60th even isn't out for like another year and a half. There is time. There is time to do.
No, we just keep scheduling it, and that's when they'll post something important so we can discuss it. I mean, I'm very excited to see what I feel like I'm saying his name wrong, but it's Ncuti, something like that. Ncuti, I'm very excited to see what he brings to the role. I love him in Sex Education, so I'm very, very happy with this, especially being written by Russell. It can't go wrong.
No, that's the thing is it's kind of weird now because he's like, for me, it's only I saw a couple of people talking about how they are feeling so old now because he's younger than them.
Oh,
and for me, he was only born 3 years before me, and I'm just like, oh god, this is what it feels like.
Right,
this is what it feels like.
At the moment, he's 7 years older than me on paper, but next week he'll only be 6 years older than me. So I've still got time. I feel like the next Doctor, you know, if it isn't me, it will be a younger.
It's also one of those things as well, because you've got to think about when Russell was doing his first era. Ncuti would have only been 13, 14.
A twinkle in his far. Oh yeah. Yes. Yeah.
He'd only been a teenager, and now he's now he's going into his 30s, and now he's in the show. You know, it's like it's one of those things where I never really understood the element of where people would say the show that they grew up with the show, because I hadn't, but now I'm actually in that territory. Because
I mean, I was 5 when the new series came back, and I worked on Legend of the Sea Devils, so it is really a case of, you know, people who have been fans and grew up with the show are now getting to the age that we're working on the show because we are just the next wave of people coming into the industry. And I agree, there was a level of I didn't quite fathom what they meant by this, that, you know, all of the Doctor Who staff, writers and everything back in 2005 were fans when it was the 80s or the 70s, you know, that kind of stuff. But now I can completely understand it, because we're as far away from, well, I think we're nearly as far away from Doctor Who. No, I think we are. I think we are now.
We've basically we've gone through the equivalent of the wilderness years, but
yeah, exactly. Yeah, so we're as far away from the last stories of the 80s as they were when they started writing the new ones. Like we're reaching that point now, that this is what's happening. We are the new wave of fans that are taking over the asylum. But it's wonderful, and so I'm very pleased to see that Ncuti's got it, because he does. I mean, the way he was talking about it in the interviews earlier on that I've been watching, he does seem like he genuinely grew up with it and really enjoys it and everything. And I'm just like, yeah, go for it. It's nice to see one of us get the job. I mean, obviously Peter Capaldi was the poster child for this, and so was Sir David Tennant. But you know, it's just wonderful to see, you know, fans getting the opportunity still.
Yeah, exactly. But then, speaking of all the fans and everything like that, and how fan content and everything like that, that's something that we're here to talk about.
Wow, that was such a beautiful segue, Connor.
Yeah.
We're here to talk about Torchwood Rebirth, which you know, is the obvious thing that I've been, you know, banging that drum for many moons. But yes, Torchwood Rebirth Volume 1. We've finally got a volume of something.
To do another very brief history lesson, because we basically covered the entire history of it when the anniversary special for Torchwood came out with Memorial. We've set up the characters of Fraser and Tommy now, but essentially the idea of Torchwood Rebirth has gone through many hands. It started with Luke Newman giving, you know, Daniel Patton the reins, but then Dan had to found himself in the choice of either making Fractured Timeline or making Rebirth, and he chose what we all know what he chose. We wouldn't be having this conversation if he didn't choose Fractured Timeline.
So he chose Fractured Timeline, and from there it sort of sat on a shelf for many years until Luke. Well, I'd said that I wanted to make a Torchwood series. I love Torchwood. I adore it, and I decided, you know what, I want to make a Torchwood series. And it's at that point Luke went, oh well, we had this idea for a Torchwood series, and then it kind of got passed over to me. I was very excited because when we were originally planning this, I had found out that Dom was going to be the future Doctor, and so there was an idea originally to do this to link up with the movie, because the first appearance, because there is a deleted scene from the Fall of the Doctor movie where me and Ben show up as our Torchwood Rebirth characters. And so the idea that the first series was going to feed into that film was there. The last remnants of Dan's original Torchwood is in series 4, episode 1, I think, Essence of a Legacy, which, you know, by the time this podcast's out, it may be deleted by that point. But effectively, there was remnants of what Dan's idea was. So if anyone does want to know kind of what was going on with his ideas, you can see those in, I think, also Archelon Trance. There's a bit at the end with a scene to do with Torchwood, and so that's the original plan. And then
it's gone on to it went on to yourself, and then
it went on to myself, and then after a while we started to move away from doing it alongside Luke due to sort of scheduling issues, because series 5 was so chaotic. We couldn't, like, it was trying to, like, you know, line up a spaceship. I don't know, I'm trying not to ruin a plot line here, but effectively it's like lining up a spaceship trying to connect to each other with an airlock to get onto the other spaceship whilst it's hurtling through a vacuum. That's what it kind of felt like to try and get these things to match up. So we went off and kind of started to do our own thing. However, at that point it then got passed on to yourself, Connor, the idea after that point was we got speaking, and to make it easier to keep track of what's going on, we thought it would be better to set it as a prequel series to where they are currently when they start appearing in live action form, which they're going to do pretty soon apparently, because there was a Next Time trailer out. So I can say this now, there is a Next Time trailer out for episode 2 of DW 2012 series 5, Vengeance of the Bloodline, and that does feature Fraser and Tommy as their, you know, Torchwoody selves. And so that's where we'll first meet them, kind of. But this is set prior to that, which will lead up to that moment. So listening to these is effectively getting the backstory of how we reached that point in their timeline. So, yes.
Yeah, essentially, yeah. And the special that we made was set in 2014, with Fraser and Tommy meeting for the first time during the Archelon trance story, and that's how it all links in. Obviously, then you have little bits where it sets up that Tommy and Fraser are going to make a team together, and that's where it ends. But with Volume 1, it picks up in 2015 with being a pre-existing team of Fraser, Tommy, and a new character called Dr. Chris Adams. And he's already been working there, but there is a cursed fourth member. Every time they try and hire someone to become the fourth member, they're either not good enough or they end up getting injured and not necessarily being a right fit for the team.
Which isn't our fault. I mean, it's just, that's on them, to be fair. But yeah, there's a little bit of a curse hanging around that no one's quite good enough. And I'll try not to spoil anything, but I feel like we're waiting for the right person to come along effectively.
Yeah, and that is until I was going to say Lizzie shows up,
and then Lizzie shows up. Yeah,
yeah, and she because obviously this version of Torchwood is based within UNIT. That's how it's not part of the monarchy. It's based within UNIT. They essentially, she is a UNIT soldier, just doing your usual patrol. Then, the usual gets pulled into something that was beyond what her job description was supposed to be, but she ends up proving her worth, and thus they take her on, and we end up in the story of Volume 1, which is one big story, rather than it being singular episodes, which we in the future are hoping to sort of look into sort of doing more single stories. But this one,
it's more of a Children of Earth style vibe, where it's one story told across multiple parts. In a sort of grander scale. I feel like when we've looked at doing singular stories, they're much more sort of monster of the week kind of things, whereas this does feel like it's a bigger story leading up to something. There's a big mystery running through the heart
and also because we've already got a team member who's in it who wasn't introduced in Memorial. Obviously you've got Fraser and Tommy, and then you've got this new character Lizzie. At least I felt as if like having one story will help see how all of them react under pressure, and then
it gave us more time to develop their relationships between each episode, as opposed to it being a case of they're thrown into too many different situations, because the situation being the same allows us almost to take a sort of breather and focus on the character development more than it does us having to go immediately, oh god, there's a Dalek or something coming this way, we've got to deal with that in a minute, we can't, there's no time to talk, we must get on with this. So this, it allows us time to really flesh out.
It's very much a character building thing, but the story, which we won't go too much into the story, but it's an adaptation of this it's I believe, what's the thing, it's the adaptation of a story about a guy called Mel Waters, where he found a hole in the ground in Washington, DC. But this hole had weird attributes to it, where it could do sort of supernatural things. Like you could throw, it was bottomless, so you could throw things in there, you'd never hear it land. But there was also like one key thing, which is how I found it, was actually through a few TikToks. Basically, people who had their pets who had died, rather than bury them, they'd throw them into this bottomless hole. But within days, would find their pets actually coming back home, healed and somehow out of the hole. So there was a huge supernatural thing that was like some sort of resurrection hole or anything like that. And whilst we're don't go
at the resurrection hole, by the way,
and whilst we don't take the Rebirth team to America or Washington, we've just sort of adapted that story to suit.
We don't have the budget for that in audio to take us to another country.
No, but like I just thought it'd be good to adapt.
Couldn't have me turn up at the airport going, "All right, team, we're at Los Angeles airport. Let's go."
Well, that's the thing. And plus, considering it's the first volume, we've just set it up with UNIT to take them out of England and off to the USA. Just didn't seem to make sense to me anyway. But
no, so we've got our own hole. They can keep their stupid hole.
Yeah, but it means as well we were able to reference the original story as if it had happened. So there are these mysterious redacted files that they keep finding about this thing, because this story with Mel Waters apparently happened at the end of the 90s into the early 2000s. So the idea is that it still happened, and Rebirth are finding this information, and it's a conspiracy crossing decades with America and England.
Yeah, so it's very
a very large thing.
It's a large scale mystery that's going on. I mean, I remember effectively Connor found this story whilst scrolling through TikTok, and one night I just get Connor sending me about 14 TikTok links going, okay, I know this is a lot, but just watch them, because I think this would be like a really good Torchwood story. So I remember sitting there going through, and it's one of those classic kind of TikToks where there's that sort of that do music in the background that sounds a bit sort of X-Filesy, Twilight Zone stuff, and then there's just some woman over the top going, okay, and then there was this bottomless hole, and this is going on here, and then this mysterious thing happened, and it's just like, oh wow. But by the end of it I was sitting there going, no, we should do this is great, this is good stuff. And then when Connor presented the scripts to us, I read through them, and I was just I couldn't put them down. I read all. Are we allowed to say how many episodes we're doing?
It's four episodes per volume.
Okay, I read all 4 of them back to back instantly. I didn't know if it was a secret or not, but I read all 4 of them back to back instantly, and I kind of just came back and went, "That's it, done. That is volume 1 done." So it was wonderful.
Yeah, but thank you, by the way. Like it was something where it had a very long process to get to the point that it did. It was recording for about 5 months, trying to get it all done, and
I mean, everyone on the cast list is relatively busy. Most of them got it done pretty quickly, but I won't lie and say that me and Ben managed to get it done quicker than anyone else. Effectively, Ben's job. My voice has gone weird. Hang on. There we go. Ben's job involves him doing night shifts. So Ben is asleep during the day and is awake during the night. But his parents are asleep during the night because he lives at home with his parents, but awake during the day, which means when Ben wants to record something, for instance, that may involve us going, oh my God, look out, there's this thing coming. He can't do that because it's too loud at night. So we had to wait for a day where he actually got a day off to then sit down and record it. And it wasn't just a small thing. It was 4 full scripts that we had to record. So I sat down with him and sort of directed him through what we kind of did. We played the scenes together because obviously there is a lot of Fraser and Tommy duo action, because that's what they pay the money to see. That's where the big bucks are from. And so there was a lot of sort of us having to play scenes together, and we eventually got all of it done, and I sent it off to Connor, and it was all done. And then Connor comes back and goes, half of episode 1 is missing. And then I go back to Ben, and Ben's like, oh God, I think the recording stopped halfway through, because I'm going, I don't have it on my end. And he was like, I don't have it here. And so we had another few months, I think, of just trying to get half of episode 1 back from Ben. It was honestly like a proper.
I will say though, it was annoying, because the one thing that was annoying was when I'd asked after what lines had come in, you'd looked and it said, oh no, it's half of it is missing, and then about the night before you were due to record half of episode 1, Ben went, oh no, don't worry, I found the file.
Yeah, that was it. It was literally.
Are you kidding me?
To finally book in with the recording suite with Ben, and by the recording suite, I mean I managed to find some time that he was free. He then actually went onto his app and went, "Oh no, here's the recording," and sent it over. And I was like, "You had it the whole time, And so, episode 1 was saved. Everyone clapped. It was great.
Yeah. It was a case of, actually, I had the entire volume edited about 3 weeks before even the episode 1 lines were sent to me.
Yeah.
So it was going, please send it, please.
But we did, and it is done. I think it's done. Is it done? It's done.
Yes.
We got it. Okay, it's good. It's done, people. Torchwood Rebirth Volume 1. Does it have a name? Did we give it a name?
Not really. No.
We should give it a cool title. Not Resurrection Hole, though. That's stupid.
I'm No.
Pit of Doom. I don't know. Sounds like an Indiana Jones movie. Torchwood and the Pit of Doom.
I don't know why my brain's gone to something like Down the Plug Hole or something like that.
Down the Plug Hole. Well, listeners, write in your ideas in the comments. I don't know. Why not? Go for it.
Get some audience interaction.
Get some audience interaction there. Your stories about a bottomless hole and Torchwood. Do your worst. No, don't do your worst. Do your best. Oh God, what have I done? How many holes jokes are we going to get?
No.
Torchwood Rebirth Volume 1. Every hole's a goal.
No.
Ooh, perhaps not. But yeah, effectively, yeah, it's done. It's really good. I enjoyed it. I mean, there was a few hairy moments in it for the team and all the characters, but is there anything really left to say about it? I mean, there's probably a few things to discuss, but I don't want to give away too many key plot points.
Well, no, not about the spoilers, but just it's nice to, obviously, when we made that special episode originally, there have been tons of special episodes that we've made for Rebirth before that you've made, or that
I've made a single audio, a single mini-sode, a deleted scene.
Well, that's the thing. It's not really been able to lead up to something like this before.
No, we've never actually. I don't think we've ever had a storyline actually lead up to something ever, or continue on from one of the points we've set up. Because the standstill special we did in lockdown, the audio, and we intended to have 3 more audios following that, but we just didn't have the time to get around to doing the other 3, so that didn't lead up to the point we wanted it to lead up to. And then the minisode was meant to lead up into the actual series, but the minisode was kind of just to set up some character stuff before series 5 happened, because as I've said, the characters from Torchwood are appearing in series 5 of DW 2012's show, so at that point it would have been a bit weird to have them turn up and it be kind of expected that you know who they are. So we kind of did that little thing to give you a taster of the character. So that did kind of lead up, but the idea was it was meant to lead into a full series, which just hasn't come to fruition.
But I think it's better that we work our way there.
Yes, see, the thing is, I'd always intended for Rebirth to start where we started it in Memorial, that kind of aspect. And then effectively, it just got to the point that Torchwood was being referenced in the storyline of DW 2012 stuff, but it was obviously moving on further, which means the stuff that was being referenced originally had happened prior, which meant we had to have it start there. So then we started to plan everything to be sort of taking place like in the minisode, where the characters just show up instead of it being a case of this is them starting. And so we've just gone back to basics and gone to the starting point of the story to actually show.
It's easier that way, because obviously by this point, series 5, episode 1 has already come out. But the biggest problem is that with series 5, episode 2 not out yet, we know that there's always movement to be had within the story. You know, if the edit's done differently, if a line's cut or anything like that.
Everything is still fluid until it's out. And even then, it may not be that case either, because he's done it before. We may end up having it, redone or something. It's like nothing. Everything is flux. Time can be rewritten is the motto of DW 2012 at this point. So it is, as I said, like hitting a moving target with actually continuity wise. So it's much nicer to be further down the line where we kind of have we know what's going to happen. We know the Archelon trance has to happen. We know Torchwood appears in Essence of a Legacy, and it's kind of a case of we just need to hit those 2 points. And after that, we're pretty much home free until the start of series 5, because the characters that are directly referenced in our series do not show up. And so all we have to do is kind of keep out the way.
Yeah, we've got tons of time until that point, which is good. And we can further develop these characters, but that's why as series 5 comes out, we will also be able to know what things are being added for the future, so that we can also write into the volume potentially, like if there's one character who says, that was awful with that alien scorpion, we can go, oh, let's do that alien scorpion idea, you know what I mean, just something like that. Or it could also be character beats as to like why, for example, Fraser doesn't like splitting up. There could have been a really bad thing that happened when they split up once. You know, like all these kind of things. Like you're kind of being fed ideas at that point. Whereas trying to work in tandem with a serise that you don't know the ending to is a bit rough. It's because
it's like trying to solve a maths equation with only half half the numbers.
Yeah, and Luke keeps his cards close to his chest when it comes to Series 5, so we don't know until the episode's out. So.
I don't think he knows until the episode's out, to be honest with you. I think Luke is constantly developing ideas as he goes along. You're making it up.
Yeah,
that's the aspect. It's just like, yes, but I do it brilliantly. You know, it's a case of. But the thing is, you know, he gets the reviews, he gets them done. You know, if it works, it works. Like it works, it just works. So we just kind of leave him to it. But effectively, we've got to survive Series 5, and then we'll know where we stand with the continuity stuff. But we got ages to get to that point. You know, we got course corrections. If he does, you know, if anything major happens, we can just literally throw in some sort of. And then this timey-wimey thing, then everything got reset to this point, which means now it perfectly lines up properly. You know, there's plenty of opportunities in a show based around time travel and whatnot.
There's tons of ideas that we can do with that. But yes. So
other than that, I guess we just got to say, when is it coming out?
Yes. I should quickly get the dates. That would be helpful. To know
it would be. We can say when the trailer's coming out, and we can say when this is coming out, and boom, there we go.
Well,
and everyone
by this point, actually, episode 1 will have already come out.
Really? When this podcast comes out?
This is coming out 4 days afterwards. So this is in the midweek, and then episode 2 is coming up. So we spoke mostly about what was coming up in episode 1, so we're all good. But yeah, so basically the trailer will be out on the 1st of June, with the first episode on the 4th, and then as you know, from then on it's weekly. So this upcoming, for the listeners, this upcoming 11th of June, but when episode 2 comes out, then it's weekly up until the 25th.
Very nice, excellent. I like that.
And thank you very much again, James, for being available. I know you are a very busy man.
No worries. Always happy to appear on the Overton Audios podcast. My 3rd time.
Yes.
Now
there was last month.
Yeah,
we were co-host. That was very, very chaotic.
that was very chaotic. I could feel the presence of the trickster feeding off of that podcast. It was pure chaos.
It very much was. It very much was.
It was what a roller coaster that was. But yeah, no, I always happy to come. I won't overstay my welcome though, so I feel like we've reached a natural conclusion before I say any spoilers, because and I'm not sure if I confirm anything or deny anything at this point, so I'll bow out gracefully.
Very well. Thank you very much again, James, and I shall go back to myself and Dan in the future.
Hello, Dan.
So that was myself and James talking about Torchwood Rebirth Volume 1, about, well, trying not to do too much revision on the same history we did last time when, the Torchwood special came out last October, but ultimately, finally getting some stories out, which is good.
Exactly. I started back in 2015. I tried my hand at it, so James and I sort of fall into you.
Yeah, it was a case of, from what I recall, wasn't it? And you ended up being faced with a difficult choice of its rebirth or its fractured timeline.
Basically, yeah.
And you were like, I can't do both simultaneously. And obviously, looking at what's then happened in the future, there was no way.
There's no way. I tried my best to do both. For me, Torchwood is going to be like a 3-part series. Also, sort of like Fresh Timeline became, but I wrote the first episode and I sent it away to cast, to send to Luke, and I tried to make a day to film episode 1, but loads of people just sort of quit last minute. I was thinking to myself, I'd rather just do Fresh Timeline for the time being. And I think ultimately bit better, because I think the iteration we got right now fits perfectly what we're trying to do with these with these characters and and Rebirth.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing I've wanted to, like, obviously we're working towards this. Is with any further Torchwood Rebirth content, I want to find a way that, because obviously it's then passed through the hands of James, and before moving on to myself, I want to try and find a way that we can all be happy, like anyone who's had it previously. That we can find story elements that we can then, you know what I mean, that we can try and incorporate, so we end up with a version of Rebirth that everyone's kind of had a hand in, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah,
and
it's finally here. It was out. It's out in some point in June. Can't remember what in June is that?
Basically, I think episode 1 will actually, let me check the schedule. I think episode 1 will actually already be out when this comes out. It will, because this comes out on Wednesdays in the midweek, the Saturday before this release of this podcast. Episode 1 will have already come out. So just in case people want to know it anyway, the trailer would have come out on the 1st of June, with episode 1 coming out on the 4th. We're currently, as time of this being released online, the 8th of June, with episode 2 following up on the 11th, and then, you know, rolling over from there weekly until it ends on the 25th. And I will say, and I know that lots of people said it to you before, but I'm going to say it again anyway, it has got one of the best covers you've ever made on it.
Thank you.
But you know which one I'm talking about, don't you?
Episode 4, yeah.
Yeah.
It's... can't wait for the episode to come out. I can't wait to show it.
Yeah, it's like, it's another level entirely. There was nothing in that photo, in that cover. Yeah, I mean, obviously the people's heads are real, but everything else has been put together. But it's so seamless when you look at it.
Thank you, mate.
And it's very, very nicely done.
I can't wait to talk about it. Really, I really can't wait to showcase that. But or me, sorry, I had it. But yeah, I'm very excited to showcase that and all of Volume 1, to be honest. And yeah, just excited because it's Torchwood, man, finally getting it out there.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And I don't know, have you got anything else to talk about, or are we at the end of the podcast now?
I think that's the end of the podcast, mate. I really think that's it. Yeah.
Oh.
I mean, we've reached the conclusion of this month's podcast, and it's been good to talk back about some older projects. Like Overlooked was one of the first things we made together, and it's been a collaborative project that's been ongoing, and from Overlooked to Finding Alex to Overlooked.
Just like Rebirth as well.
Yes, it's
a theme.
That parallelity there, yeah.
Yeah, it's nice.
Yeah, indeed. Anyway, that's all I have to say for this month's podcast. With yourself, sir?
Thank you very much for listening, I suppose. And we'll have a quick chat, but we'll hopefully both be around for next month's podcast.
Hopefully. If not, then something horrible has probably happened to me.
Oh.
I'm joking. It was Connor.
Farewell.
Farewell all. Till next month.